Hi, my name is Jenny Mischel, and I am a visiting assistant professor of psychology at Oxford College of Emory University. And today I am going to be sharing a brief presentation on teaching a growth mindset to reduce the prevalence of bullying and cyberbullying behavior. Now, I imagine many of you have heard the terms fixed and growth mindset. And what it really means is a fixed mindset is the belief that your capabilities or qualities are set in stone. Whereas a growth mindset is the belief that you can cultivate and change and improve upon these capabilities or qualities. Research in this field was first conducted by Carol Dweck because she was fascinated by how people cope with failure. And in order to do so, she researched children's responses to challenging situations. And what she found really surprised her, because some of the students gave up, whereas others said that they loved the challenge and they wanted more. And her further research suggested that those children who presented with a growth mindset were better able to show more effort, persistence, resiliency when faced with challenging situations, as well as the desire to engage in more activities that were like this. She also found that those who did not believe that intelligence was set in stone tend to exhibit more effort and persistence on other challenges. So her findings were so beneficial that they have been widely adapted in many educational settings, as well as parenting skills. There has been a recent shift, though, to implementing such strategies into the field of mental health, which is very exciting. So some studies that have been done that implemented a growth mindset found that adult reported depression and anxiety with their child was reduced. The youth also reported this reduction, and they also reported a sense of more psychological security because they felt like they had control over their behavior. There was a reduction in anxiety and depression, as well as the ability to implement more adaptive coping strategies. Those who reported more of a fixed mindset when they were challenged with a difficult task tended to give up and ruminate on their inability to complete the task, as well as disengaging from activities with that particular task or in social interactions. So in order to understand what might be happening, I think it's really important to share diagrams or frameworks with our youth so that they're better able to understand what's happening. So I set this up first with a challenge. So it's a form of bullying that might take place. It could be physical, verbal, cyber, social, or sexual. And I included sexual because I find that that is one of the most prevalent types of bullying or cyberbullying reported with middle school and high school students. So those with the fixed mindset may take the attitude as, this is out of my control, I might as well give up. And when they tend to engage in this type of behavior, they start to exhibit learned helplessness. Excuse the spelling error, there should be another S there. So they tend to engage in learned helplessness where they tend to give up, right? This can also lower their self-esteem, which we will talk about in a slide in the future. Those with the growth mindset, even though it hurts their feelings, they tend to have that attitude of, even though I wasn't able to handle the situation at the moment, I know I can in the future. There has to be strategies that I can use. There has to be things that I can do or ways that I can feel that will reduce the detrimental outcomes from a bullying type of situation. When they have this type of growth mindset, they will increase their self-efficacy, which is their belief in their ability to overcome or to tackle a challenging task. And it will also increase their self-esteem. So some of the things that students with a fixed versus growth mindset might say to themselves are listed on this page. So what I've heard oftentimes through my interviews is those with a fixed mindset, if they've been bullied or have experienced ongoing bullying situations, they start to wonder what they're doing wrong. They start to take the blame for the bullying situation. They feel like this will be never ending. There's no solution to the problem. Those with the growth mindset, even though it hurts their feelings, they start to say things like, well, that really hurt, but I know I didn't do anything wrong. There's got to be a way to stop this person from acting that way. Or I wonder what's going on with them for them to treat me this way. They also have a tendency to remind themselves that they have some sort of support system in place. So how to implement it? So first, explaining what a growth mindset means. Perhaps you show them the diagram that I created. Then you teach them ways to develop this type of growth mindset, which is what we'll go through, talking about self-esteem, support systems, finding strategies, goal setting to self-regulate emotions, as well as encouraging positive self-talk. So the first I want to talk about is self-esteem, what it means, because so often I hear students say, well, I have low self-esteem, right? And I'll ask them, what does that mean? They don't really know. They'll say, well, I just don't feel good about myself, or I can't do certain things, but they don't really understand what it means. And I think, again, by explaining what something is, they have a better idea and they're better able to relate it to their own life. So I use the term self-esteem because research tends to rely on this to refer to self-concept, how we perceive ourselves. So there are two components. There are external sources and internal. The external are those things that are outside of us. So it might be the grades we get, the likes we get on social media, or the grades we don't get, or the dislikes that we get on social media. These are outside of us. It's how we perceive others perceiving us. The internal component is really important because this is being aware of our beliefs, our values, what's important to us, who we are as a person, as well as our passions. So when the internal components of self-esteem are understood and are strong, even when we have external self-esteem issues, we are able to become more resilient. So I liken this to a single stool table. So self-esteem at the top, you may or may not have the support system. If you don't, the table is more likely to topple, right? And if you're only relying on external sources of self-esteem, all it takes is one small tip of the table for it to fall over. And so often I hear people say, I've even heard administrators say, well, that person has really high self-esteem. I can't imagine they would bully someone else. Well, if they're not in tune with the internal components of their self-esteem, it's easier for things to fall apart. All right. So what are some things that we can encourage? Support systems. So ask the children, who can they count on? Do they have family members, friends? Is there a teacher? Is there a school counselor that they can rely on? And if they feel like they don't have any of those support systems in place, it's time to help them find them. Because I know there are teachers at schools. There are also counselors who are very happy to be that secure support network system for a child. You can encourage the children to also join clubs, as well as seeking out new friends who might have more in alignment with their interests. Strategies. All right, so there's two types of strategies that children can take if they are faced with any sort of adverse situation. So they can take a problem-focused approach where they believe that the situation is under their control. It's within their control. Then they can confront the individual or tell a person in authority. If they take more of the emotion-focused approach, which is fine, this is where they tend to have the perception that the situation is out of their control, which is probably what most people who are bullied feel. So they then need to find those strategies that help them find some sort of balance or equilibrium again, so that they're able to go out and continue with their daily tasks. So there are many different things that they can do for emotion-focused coping. So some ideas are talk to someone, go to somebody in their support system, leave the situation, listen to music. They can meditate. They can engage in tapping, which is referred to as the emotional freedom technique, which helps everything settle down again and reduces their anxiety, as well as engaging in breathing techniques. All right. Also teaching how to self-regulate their emotions. So there are 3 phases with this component, and it's similar to goal setting. So there's a forethought phase, the performance phase, and the feedback phase. In this situation, developed by Zimmerman, it's usually used for academic goal setting, but it can also be used for regulating emotions. The forethought phase is setting goals. How would you like to behave? How would you like the situation to transpire? What are some of those strategies you're going to put in place? What are some things you might say to somebody who confronts you? That is the forethought phase. You have that in place ahead of time. The performance phase is in the situation. Are you implementing the strategies? Are you telling yourself how to behave? Are you using positive self-talk? Are you focused on what has actually happened and how you are feeling? So this is in the moment. Are you implementing some of those breathing techniques to help you calm down so you're able to implement some of those strategies that might be effective, or say what you wanted to say that you set up in the goal setting? Finally, the feedback phase. This is after the situation has occurred. Then you step back and you assess the situation. Did you handle the situation in a way that you thought was beneficial? Are there things you can change and improve upon? Are there other causes that created the situation to go the way you wanted it to, or the way you didn't want it to? So this is really looking back and assessing the situation. And again, if you didn't handle it the way you wanted, it's not a time to beat yourself up. It's a time to go to that growth mindset state and say, all right, maybe I didn't handle it the way I wanted to this time, but I know I can improve upon it next time. And you go back to the forethought phase again. So I like to give you the table with the 4 sturdy legs. So self-esteem at the top, it's going to all be strengthened if you have a good internal sense of who you are, if you have strategies, if you have things in place, if your external perceptions of self-esteem do not go the way that you want them to. Are you reminding yourself that maybe things didn't go the way you had hoped this time, but they will get better? And finally, do you have those support systems in place? Positive self-talk is the next component. It helps reduce stress, boosts confidence and resilience. It also builds better relationships. So some things that children can be reminded to do is identify those times that they're going to struggle. Use positive self-affirmations. Check with their emotions. Have them assess what that might be going on and what they're feeling, and also learn to create those boundaries so that they're not putting themselves in situations that are not comfortable. If they implement all of this, their self-efficacy will rise and they will tackle the next situation with more confidence. And I will leave you with this final quote: your opinion of me is none of my business. Good luck, and I hope you are also engaged in a growth mindset. Thank you for your time.